Hello and welcome to the video. Well, I thought it was a bit of a red letter banner day when the Family Tree DNA service decided to open up its doors to Ancestry DNA and 23andMe users. And by that, it allowed Ancestry and 23andMe users to transfer their autosomal DNA results to its service. I'd already done this with GetMatch, and that had actually started yielding some pretty interesting cousin connections. FTDNA's online service, however, well, it's built in such a way that, well, it's truly, genuinely amazing. I didn't see this at first. However, after spending a few hours playing around with the data contained in its chromosome browser, the full implication of what could be achieved through the FTDNA service, well, it quite literally blew my mind. Every DNA service has its strengths and weaknesses. GetMatch's chromosome analyzer, for instance, well, it was truly groundbreaking. It was the first of its kind. And as a free service, GetMatch is an invaluable genetic genealogy tool that puts people who've used different testing services in touch with one another. And that's always going to be one of its main selling points. FTDNA, well, it's taken the whole chromosome browsing functionality to an entirely different level. However, to be fair, FTDNA is a commercially driven service, so it has the funds to create what I call the Chromosome Browser version 2.0. But I kind of digress. I stumbled across something amazing within FTDNA's Chromosome Browser. I don't even think FTDNA itself is aware of it. Otherwise, they would have been trumpeting this as a key feature to everyone and anyone. Bear with me, though, throughout this video. I'm going to admit that some parts of it are a bit technical. Not the language, not the concepts, those are pretty straightforward. But if you're not already familiar with spreadsheets, and Excel in particular, it may take a bit of time to wrap your head around some of what I'll be covering. Stay with it though. I promise you, the results will be worth it. So, without further ado, let's get started. So here we have a list of the basic things you're going to need to get started. And thankfully it's quite a small list. So obviously, you're going to need a Family Tree DNA account, and I'll go over that in a bit. You need autosomal DNA results from either Ancestry DNA or 23andMe. Last but not least, Microsoft Excel or an equivalent spreadsheet software. Now the next two screens are going to actually go over how you can download your raw DNA data from either Ancestry or 23andMe. Okay, so now that you've actually downloaded your raw DNA data, now it's time to actually upload that data to FTDNA. And the next couple of screens will actually step you through that process. So that's the kind of boring and mundane part of it done and dusted. You've downloaded your raw DNA from another service, you've uploaded it to FTDNA, you've impatiently waited those 2 to 3 business days for them to actually process that data into their format. And now we're going to move into actually downloading the raw DNA from FTDNA into a file format that you can work with in Excel or another kind of spreadsheet. And that's going to set the stage for some really quite remarkable discoveries. Okay, so if you haven't done it already, log into your FTDNA account. And in order to download the raw data from FTDNA, we need to go to the Chromosome Browser. And you'll see the link for that where the orange arrow is pointing. So now we're actually in the Chromosome Browser part of the FTDNA site. A few things to note. There are names that are actually listed here, and for privacy reasons, I've obscured them. It's just the responsible thing to do. So the next thing that you actually want to do at this point is to click on the link that orange arrow is pointing towards, the one that says download all matches to Excel. And it's a file format called CSV. You don't particularly need to know what that means or what that is, but it's a file type that you can download and you can open in Excel or pretty much any other spreadsheet, so you can start to work with it. So the rest of the video is now going to cover things like opening up that CSV file and putting things that we call filters on the data that's contained within that spreadsheet. Okay, so first things first, we actually need to open up that CSV file. So you can either do that using MS Excel if you already have that loaded onto your laptop or your PC or your notebook. If you don't have MS Excel, there's some really excellent free services out there, free spreadsheet software that allow you to do exactly the same thing. The first one is called Calc, which you see here on the screen. There's another one called Zoho Sheet, and Microsoft itself even has a free version of Excel. It's called the OneDrive Productivity Suite. Don't worry about not being able to click on the links as you see on the screen. Basically, I've provided links for all of these services in the description section for the video. So this is what that CSV file looks like once you actually open it up in Excel or some other spreadsheet software. You're going to notice there are lots of columns, and each column has what's called a column heading or a column name. So things like name, matched name, matching SNPs, and then loads and loads of rows of information that correspond with each one of those headings. Depending on how many cousin matches you have will depend on how many rows of data that you have. For me, for instance, I have something in the region of nearly 10,000 lines of data. And basically, that's why I'm going to be stepping you through a process so that we can actually format this data and make it much easier to work with and just easier to be able to interpret. Okay, now that we have our CSV file open, we just need to do a few things in order to put the data, kind of arrange it in a way that will make it easier for us to work with it. We're going to do this step by step and screen by screen. The next couple of screens are pretty straightforward, so there won't be any audio. It took me a couple of minutes to realize what I was looking at when I first did this, so I've thrown some rectangles around each group of cousin matches just to make what I discovered easier to see. In the image on the screen, I've highlighted my cousin match groups for chromosome 1. There were more than these, however, for the purposes of this video, the matches that I've shown are enough. What I realized was this: not only was each person in each of these groups related to me, they were related to each other. You can see this in the start and end locations given for chromosome 1. In other words, the 3 people in the dark blue rectangle were related to me as well as each other. We also shared the same amount of SNP. But what was really interesting was the second group of cousin matches, the 4 people in the aqua box. We share the same start point as the 3 people in the first group. However, our matching end location for chromosome 1 is different. I share more SNP with the second group than the first. I haven't quite figured out what this means. Maybe the second group simply inherited more autosomal DNA from our shared ancestor than maybe the first group did. Maybe the second group are closer to me in terms of generational distance, meaning that the first group are cousins who might be a generation or 2 removed from the second group. I need to do a lot more research on this. However, for the meantime, I'll just let the implications of this sink in a bit. In the end, we're cousins. The fun will be in figuring out not only how I'm related to each of them, but how each person in each group is related to the others. Now I'm kind of hoping you can see why I was so excited about this discovery. I have a recently discovered cousin, and I knew that she had also transferred autosomal results to FTDNA, as did other members of her family. We already knew the who, what, when, where, and how in terms of how we were related. Our common ancestors were a set of 3 times great-grandparents who lived in Edgefield County, South Carolina. Finding this match in my spreadsheet would tell me something about the other people who matched for the same segment on the same chromosomes. Even better, when I contacted these people via email, I could give precise information about how we were related, just through having this one confirmed match. And I could also provide them a wealth of information that I had about that match. So I needed to find this match out of nearly 10,000 rows of data. Now to scroll down each and every row of data would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Thankfully, with spreadsheets, there is a much easier way to find this kind of data. It involves using filters, which we'll look at now. The following screens will step you through how to apply filters to your own spreadsheet. Thank you for watching the video. I hope it inspires you and revs you up to maybe start working with the data that's locked away in FTDNA's kind of raw data in a different way. And of course, I hope it helps you unlock some of your own family history kind of mysteries and fills in some of the gaps in your own family tree. Have a great adventure.